Hey everybody, Matt and Mike for the IronTrap podcast.
What's up, everyone?
Another, podcast talking about car stuff and whatever things and business and whatever. So we have to say it 1,000 times because the internet doesn't listen, or maybe it's the first time you're listening. We alternate a video and audio only podcast every week. So this one you're listening to now is audio only. Some of these audio only podcasts we've been doing more hot topics, motivational business, some of the stuff that maybe doesn't have as much visual excitement. And then we're doing the visual ones where we're doing more like talking about old videos behind the scenes, talking about some of our favorite cars or, era, whatever, and that has a lot of great visuals. So that's what our podcast is.
Yep.
You're listening now and you like old cars or hot rods, you're probably in the right place. If not, just listen anyways.
Yeah, you'll be entertained. We'll try and keep it entertaining.
Yeah. So as always, make sure you hit the subscribe, all that button stuff for our podcast. It's been slowly growing. We've been getting a lot of verbal confirmation that people are listening and enjoy it. So thank you to everyone that's told us that or messaged us or whatever, or even comment and say, I really, that podcast hit home. And that's what we're trying to do with some of these audio ones. Mike and I are trying to come up with topics that just like hanging out or talking to friends or watching the internet and you see people that discuss certain topics. It's like, we might have some input on that. So,
and if you have a topic we have not covered, please send us an email because it helps us create more content. So IronTrapGarage@gmail.com.
We have a lot of content we push out. So every now and then we do need some ideas.
Yes,
so that is helpful.
It does not hurt.
Yes. So any housekeeping type
business stuff. So this is coming. We'll be in Grand. This is coming out this Sunday. So we'll be headed out to Grand National Roadster Show. We are spending some time with Piero and Lucky as they get Tweety Pie ready. Yep. So we'll be out there for the show Friday and Saturday because we're flying home Sunday.
Yeah.
So if you're at the show Friday and Saturday, we'll be there pretty much for the majority of both days, walking around, shooting a video, talking to people. If you're in the area and you'd like to film a podcast, we're bringing all the podcast stuff out. So shoot us an email or message on Instagram. We'd love to shoot a couple podcasts while we're out there.
And I've said it to a couple of people that hit us up on Instagram. If you follow us or we talk a lot through DM, feel free to grab one of us and say hello, within reason, of course. If I'm about to go in the shitter, don't grab me.
Like as we're eating lunch.
Yeah. But anyways, if you see us walking around, and especially if we have a lot of people I feel like that I've talked to for years on social media. They obviously know us by face because we're doing all this stuff. But a lot of people on Instagram, they don't really post photos of themselves. So I realized there's a lot of guys that I know, or maybe I saw a couple photos that I might walk by them in a crowd of people. But we talk a lot on the internet. Yeah. So definitely stop us, say hello. We had a couple guys last year that stopped me, and I had a great hour plus long conversation because we talk online a lot and similar interests. So that's a big part of going to Grand National for us is seeing people that we only get to see once a year. And I feel like Grand National is kind of like the meeting place for the whole hot rodding custom community kind of gets together. There's so many people there at one time. So, so stop us, say hello. Otherwise, we're just kicking butt on the Mercury. We're waiting for the spring. Trying to pick out, I've been thinking about a couple of, this year I'm going to try, now we got the craziness of the building, we're going to try and do a couple of further away shows this year, and we're not going to overwhelm ourselves with traveling all around the country every week doing shows, but might pick one or two shows like we do the Gilmore for Relics Riot.
Yep.
We may or may not do that this year. Hopefully do that this year, but maybe pick one other show that's further away that we can go and bring a car and have fun. So we're going to try and do that. If there's a show that's a bigger one that you think we should hit,
Oh man, we're gonna get a lot of emails.
Yeah. I guess we already kind of know the big ones we want to hit, so you don't necessarily need to do that.
Yeah, but please don't send us shows in California and Oregon. We're not driving across.
I'd love to.
One day.
Not quite there yet, but So, anyways, that's kind of what's going on. Planning our next year of stuff that's going on, but getting excited about some of the cars that we're working on, especially the Mercury. I didn't plan on doing the whole winter on the Mercury, and it's turned into a total transformation is what I was looking for.
But that's what you kind of wanted to do that.
Yep.
But it's the bad weather is a good excuse to just
Yeah.
keep hunkering down on it and keep working.
Yeah, it suddenly, as soon as I chopped the roof and got the roof chopped basically done, it was like the next week the temperatures dropped and we started getting snow. And it's like, well, I guess the cars are in the garage right now. We're stuck in the garage until the weather warms
Yep.
up. So that's just what we're doing. So, but it's really cool. I think the car is going to be more fun to drive, way better to look at.
Very excited for people to see it because they're gonna not lose their minds, but just
Yeah, it'll be a cool transformation.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of fun for me. I think a lot of people on the chat, the internet as a whole has a short memory.
Yeah.
So what blew me away is how many people were surprised that I could do metalwork.
Yeah,
like I
that's
haven't been doing
so
metalwork
funny.
for a very long time. My skills have gotten better over the last handful of years. But like, if you go back to Eastwood videos from 10 years ago, I was like doing, a fender patch in a Tri-5 Chevy fender and metal finishing it. Like I've been doing it. I'm just getting better and quicker and whatever. So, but it's been kind of funny. So it's been fun for me because I enjoy that kind of work, but also been cool to like, not flex my muscles, but just show a little bit the work that I can do. We've just been doing a lot of survivor cars that have been
Yeah.
more like floor work and that kind of stuff. But it's been fun to get into a few customs. And now I'm like in full custom mode where I'm like,
that Lincoln shaking in its boots.
yeah, I
over
know.
there.
I have so many plans for that, but we got to wait. The 38 convertible and this Mercury we're going to try and get going.
Definitely.
And then all the other projects, of course, do all that stuff too. So anyways, today's topic is a big one. When we see a lot of people at shows and different
Especially
events.
like Grand National from people all over the country.
Yeah, we hear it a lot more when we go to like some of the swap meets like Hershey and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I feel like a lot of people at Grand National are tuned in pretty good.
That's true.
So you don't hear it as much. But the thing we hear is, or in comments and stuff, there's no car scene in my area, or there's not a lot of guys into this stuff in my area. I don't know, I can't find anybody that's, whatever. And they come to different shops or come to our shop and they're like, wow, I can't believe there's so many guys. Or we have some of these local shows that people will come to from other places. Like, man, I can't believe how good of a car community or scene you have. And I will agree, kind of like the West Coast, the East Coast especially,
Yeah.
Northeast in particular, I feel like has a very rich car culture, and most every town or large suburbs of cities have big car scenes.
And we're especially spoiled. I mean, Pottstown is only 15 minutes away, and at one point that was like the number one cruising.
Car cruising America was one of the top places in the
I
country.
think it was voted number one at one point.
It was in like Street Rodder or something in the
Yeah.
70s. It was one of the top places, if not the top.
So
place.
we are very spoiled in this area.
Yeah, and Hershey, a lot of dirt racing and big drag racing in 1 to 2 hour radius of here. There's a bunch of tracks, so that bred a lot of car culture, which
yeah.
we're very lucky to have. But we still hear a lot of people. We're going to narrow it down a little bit into, if you're specifically into I try to group it together: nostalgia, hot rods, and customs.
Yeah.
Traditional can sometimes be a little snobby, so I like to just say nostalgic hot rods and customs. We're gonna use that, genre, if you will, and we figured we'd talk about some ideas or tips or ways that even to this day I'm trying to do in my own local area to try and get to have a better car scene or car culture or
Yeah.
whatever. And the biggest thing I think we can echo is you can make. This sounds like we're doing like a political voting thing.
You can make the difference.
You can make the difference. You can make the change. And when it comes to car culture and community, it's crazy what one or two people
Yeah.
taking
The initiative.
the initiative can do, because we've seen it in my local area. A couple, one of the local guys and another gal and a couple, I should say, a few people in our local area, they pretty much started gathering all the local cruise-ins and organizing them,
Creating
and
a calendar.
posting on social media a lot, reminding people. And it went from being a thing where like you might forget that there's a cruise-in, and now there's this nice piece of paper on my fridge. And every day when I get done working in the shop, I come in at dinner time and I look at the thing and go, oh shit, tonight there's a cruise-in at this diner.
Yeah.
Let me hop in the car and go instead of eating dinner at the house. And like I would have missed it and forgot until whatever.
I will say with that, you drive. Not that you didn't drive the cars a lot, but you're going to a lot more cruisins in the area because it's a very easy reminder. You just walk in and go, oh yeah, that's the night. Let's go.
Yeah. It's like I'm usually looking for an excuse to drive the car, but sometimes I just take it out and drive it
to Taco Bell.
Yeah, whatever. Just take it somewhere. Just drive it aimlessly, whatever it is. Take it for an hour drive. But like now you're like, okay, I have a destination. I'm gonna go to this place, hang out. I'll take the long way home on a summer night, and it's a nice drive. So. We've gotten into that whole how you enjoy the hobby, so you pick that method. But so if you're having trouble with gathering like-minded car people together, or starting a scene or whatever you want to call it in your area, I feel like in the States there's a scene in I don't care if you're in farm country in the Midwest. There is a scene. It's probably more spread out. You might have to drive an hour or two to where the scene is, but there is a scene, and there's car people everywhere. I feel like it's just ingrained in our culture. So we're kind of we're spoiled in these states for
definitely,
sure,
100%.
As far as this stuff goes. But what we're gonna dial in is, like I said, the niche of what you're into. And I think that kind of goes back to car clubs and stuff like that. That goes without saying. If car clubs are your thing, if there is a car club, joining it or starting one, it is a great way. I hesitate on talking about that because sometimes car clubs become not fun because of politics and different opinions and things like that. When you get too organized, sometimes it becomes...
too many personalities trying to be the head person in charge and rules and all that stuff.
So... and this is kind of how this idea popped up for this podcast. I've been taking the initiative on something like this. So a big one is, if there isn't one, or you don't like the ones that are going on, start a cruise-in or weekly/monthly gathering of like-minded car people. So I feel like in almost everywhere in the States, there's some sort of Cars and Coffee.
Oh yeah,
cruise-in, something going on, throughout the year or during the warm months. But I could speak from experience. I know it's that way in my area. A lot of those events are not my type of cars. I don't want to say my type of people, but just not the cars I'm into viewing. And some of these cruise-ins that I go to, we'll get into a little bit later in one of the points, is they're not... I don't really look at the cars because they're not really my thing. So one of the things is, if you don't like it or you want to do something different, start a cruise-in or an event that's more based around the type of stuff you're into. And that doesn't mean you're snobby about it or keep people out, but if you know somebody that has a business or a restaurant or something, take the initiative to maybe approach the business owner and say, hey, I'd like to start hosting a little car event here. And you give them all the upsides of the business owner. Hey, your restaurant, we're going to get cars coming in. They're going to come in and eat at your restaurant. And a lot of times they're pretty open to that. Like, oh, you're going to boost my business on a Thursday night.
And there's 7 days in a week. You don't have to do the cruise-in the same, say they do it on a Saturday, pick like a Wednesday. I mean, the cruise-ins around here, there's one like
almost every night.
Every night of the week. And there's a ton of people that come out to them.
Yeah, and they're definitely, you'll notice, I don't know if it's this way everywhere in the country, but I've noticed when I've gone to different car cruise-ins or hangouts, it is definitely based on the type of cars or people. So like in our area, there's a little Cars and Coffee every Sunday at a coffee shop that's, maybe 10 minutes from here, 5 minutes from here. And the guys that kind of gotten behind it are drag racing and muscle car guys. So when I cruise in there with my old school hot rod, I'm in a sea of like 900 horsepower big block Chevy Novas and Camaros and stuff. Super cool, totally. And those guys aren't like snobby with me. And I go there, and a lot of times it crosses over. I know a bunch of those guys since high school and whatever. And but participating in their cruise-ins is a good thing, but I probably wouldn't go every weekend because it's just not my... I look at those cars a few times. I don't appreciate them like I would something else. So starting an event, or cruise-in or gathering or whatever. So like for me, recently the example is like I thought there isn't a lot of Friday night cruise-ins in our area. A lot of our cruise-ins in our area are definitely geared towards older people, retired people. They have them on a Wednesday night. They start at 3 o'clock, and a lot of times they're done by 6 or 7 o'clock. So if you work a normal day job, even me having us having our own schedule, I still kind of work to 5 o'clock. So for me to get done early at 3 to make it to the cruise-in is kind of a pain in the butt. So like I've been thinking it's like I've gone to other areas or you see other events where it's like a Friday night cruise-in or hangout or shop night or whatever, and everybody can hang out till 10 o'clock at night because nobody's got work. So it's like I started putting the bug in. Like we have our local car museum here that I'm involved in has a bunch of large parking lots. There's a bar, restaurant across the street that has an outdoor bar seating area. It's literally right across from the parking lot. The museum's always looking for ways to get people to go into the museum, become members, donations. So if I've kind of started to try and put the pieces in place. So that's a good example. Just find a parking lot or a...
Yeah, that's another thing Matt said about a restaurant or a bar. Yeah. It could just be a parking lot, and food trucks are so abundant now.
Yeah.
You could just have a couple food trucks come out, and you now have food and drink.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be at a restaurant.
Yeah, and I think the key is having somewhere that everybody would want to hang out.
Yeah.
So like if it's a shop night, if you're the dude with the coolest garage out of all your friends, you've now been nominated. You have the spot for the weekly or monthly gathering. And I see people do it around the country. It's really neat. Some of these actual professional hot rod shops, they'll have like a, first Friday cruise-in open house at their shop. And I think that's really cool. Like, I know it's a pain in the butt if you're a business owner you work all day and then you stay open late that night, but I think it's big for helping the car community. So like having an event at your location, and we've talked about it here at IronTrap about doing a similar thing. I think now that we're finally got all the buildings in one place and the parking lot's better, I've considered doing a similar thing where there's a neighboring community center that we're very friendly with, again, a nonprofit.
Yep.
So it's a similar idea. Like if we held a little event there that was, not looking to do 1,000 cars and coffee, but if we had a little local event and we're just urging people to have donate to the nonprofit, it kind of is win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
But if you don't have something like that, it could start as simple as doing a shop night or a rotating shop night. Maybe it's every other, like our buddy Jamie, he does like car guy night, he calls it, which doesn't have to be guys.
Night, right?
Yeah, it's like Tuesday night. He usually grills out. He has a real cool house shop area that's great for hanging out, kind of in the woods. But everybody just sits around in chairs they drive their old car, talk about what's going on. You grill some food, and it's just a good way to hang out. But and
it also helps motivate you to work on your project because you're talking and discussing and potentially working through problems that you're having with your project.
Yeah, I know Jamie did it a lot at his shop. Some guys would bring little projects in and they'd work on somebody's project for a number of weeks. The shop night was they were helping so-and-so fix a floor in the rust in the floor of a car, and yes, everybody's drinking beers and eating and hanging out, so maybe not as productive as a actual shop, but a little bit gets done on that person's car. And
and even if you don't have a cool shop, but you own like say an auto repair shop, you got lifts. That's like the perfect place. Everyone bring their project over. You just tinker on it with a lift because some guys don't have access to a lift.
And the rule that your car has to leave by the end of the night.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I could speak from experience with having a lift that is being the lift owner. Yeah. That is a slippery slope.
Yeah, you're not doing like a crazy lifting the body off and stuff, but you know, have a lift and a couple guys tackle a few things and back on the trailer and you take it home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that we'll get into some. There's some that's part of our starting a scene or getting like-minded people together. That's definitely something. But so some sort of weekly, monthly gathering of like-minded people. Start something on your own. I think the word will spread. And yes, for the first little while, it might be just 3 of you hanging out in the parking lot or at a shop night. But I think eventually as the word spreads, and it reminded me of this. This again reminds me of it. Somebody posted up something recently about Art Chrisman, and they were like, somebody knew Art Chrisman, and they were saying that great guy, blah blah blah, whatever. And that reminded me of, I went 2 or 3 years. When I went out to California, I went to Art Chrisman's. He had like an informal shop night.
Yeah.
And it was word of mouth. You didn't have to be a famous hot rod guy to show up. If you just knew somebody, you were cool. You show up with a bag of chips or
Is that the one you always had to bring a side dish?
You bought like a bag of chips or a soda or something with, and that was your offering, and that was
your
good.
admission fee?
Yeah, you got in. So like I went there 2 or 3 times, and it was kind of ridiculous because it's California, so it's like crazy people would just show up,
yeah.
you know. But it was really cool because his shop was like, you know, hot rod heaven, race car heaven, and they got some really high end stuff they're working on top of it being our Christmas shop, and he's there and whatever. So like, I thought that was just so cool that somebody that was such a big name in racing and hot rodding would open their shop up and just have an infrequent Friday, or I think it might have been Wednesdays, if I remember right.
I think from stories before it was like a Wednesday.
Yeah, but it was like something like that, and it was word of mouth. It wasn't huge. There might have been 20 to 50 people there, but you pulled in and there was a bunch of people drove their cars there. And now, like, I think that's getting back to a lot of that for me is the essence of what this hobby is about. The old time hot rodders back in the day, there wasn't like this cars and coffee culture thing. It was more like
well, the car shows were more of like fancy cars in a building. It wasn't everyone drives to a parking lot.
Well, there was. I mean, there was outdoor car shows, but I don't think it was as frequent as it is now. Or it was even less informal. There was no internet, so everybody just knew that you went cruising on the main street and went to the burger joint every Friday night. So like it was a little different, but it was back to a lot of people were hanging out at each other's shop, or everybody just agreed that every Friday we all just show up to the local burger joint and just hang out.
Yeah.
And it could be something that informal, but if you're doing it with like-minded car people, it's going to grow. Other like-minded car people are going to tell each other about it. So whatever that method is, I'm trying to think of more of that to offer either a space or organize things with what we have to create that in our local area. And by local, I see it can be anywhere from an hour, 2 hours, but 30 minutes to an hour in our area is kind of where a lot of people travel and go to events. So the next one, help friends / locals get cars on the road.
Yes, this is Matt's big thing.
Yeah, that's actually one of my like 2025 / 2020 end of 2024, but at 2025 like things as a human being or helping friends get cars on the road. I've been doing it but I've been super in the past. I've been very selective. It's only been like once in a great while. I haven't given other than you, Mike, I usually make it difficult for people to do it. I'll offer up the help, but it's got to be like exactly at the 15 minutes that I have the time to give you help. So help friends or local car guys get their cars on the road.
We're going to get so many emails from local people. They're like, Matt, can you come help me?
If you make it enticing enough, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Trade you a 32 grill for some work on my Model A. Yeah.
So in the last handful of years, I've just noticed a trend where we meet so many people that we see at events every spring or every Carlisle or name the event. We see them infrequently, but frequently enough you remember the person. You go, oh, hey, how's that 36 Roadster going?
Mm-hmm.
It's in the same place it's been the last 10 times I talked to. And it's like, what can you do to help that friend get their car on the road? Because it's going to grow your car culture or community. So I've been, in the last 10, 15 years, I've been very selfish, and I'm trying to get my own cars done and on the road, because many years ago I found that I got too much with helping other people that they were taking advantage of me or they weren't reciprocating.
Oh,
so
definitely.
I kind of went back in my little hidey hole, decided to build a brand, a business, whatever. And now that I've emerged on the other side of that and stuff's kind of, running how we'd like it to. We're happy with where we are. It's like, all right, now I need to focus on helping friends get cars on the road and donating my time. So obviously Mike's a little different because he's part of the IronTrap family, so we've been getting it done. But like that's a good example of there was a lot of stuff that I did to Mike's car where it was days of me doing work, just me, because I had to do it. And it wasn't like I was looking to get anything out of it. It was just, I want to see. And when we bitch at Mike or we give him hell, it's because we want him to see the car get on the road. Yeah. It's not because we're being jerks. It's like all of our group of friends were like, because Mike's going to the events, but he doesn't have a car, so it'll make it a lot more fun. So I've been trying to do that more myself. My friend Nick locally is a really good friend of mine that I've known for years, and he's had cars sort of on the road. He's had cars he kind of got on the road but never were right, or whatever. But it's been a while since he's had just a car on the road he can just cruise around our area locally and have fun. So like he bought a Roadster pickup recently, a Model A. He really liked how we did the shop truck, and he wanted to do something in a similar vein, but with his own twist. So like he has a one-car garage. He doesn't have any fabrication tools. So like kind of he and I agreed I was going to help him, but the rule was I wasn't leaving his car at the shop. So like we pick a weekend, I trailer his car here, and we've done it with George, our real good friend George. I've done the same thing. He trailers my car to my shop for a weekend. I give him total focus for a weekend to work on his car. We tackle some big things off the punch list. He gets ahead. They get remotivated, and you get closer to the finish line. So imagine if you had a group of guys doing that on a shop night or whatever. You would get even more done. It's a little harder here at my shop because of how many projects we juggle to do that, but that's a good example.
Yeah. And I wouldn't say you were selfish, because over the years, there's been people that brought smaller projects, because you've helped Jason Moss with a ton of stuff.
Yeah, you're true.
And right. What's his name with the yellow?
Spencer.
Spencer. Yeah. So I wouldn't say you were selfish. It was just.
But those were people that were close to me that helped me a lot in the shop to even get the chance.
Yeah, it's true.
They came here and helped me for months for free, and then I'm like, okay, now you've earned, which is an old school thing that I believe in. They put in their time helping me and hanging around, and then I eventually helped them. Yeah. But I'm trying to get better about, like, if it's just good people that I want, like, I enjoy talking to people at shows and they have cars, but, like, they can't seem to get over that hump to get on the road. Mm-hmm. How can we help them? Can I help the person get the chop done on their car, and then they get over the hump, you know? And like, if it's somebody, and I've done it in the past for sure. Like I think of actually, you only met him once, Simon. We went to visit him in California one time. He was an old Volkswagen friend of mine.
Oh yeah.
My friend Simon was a Volkswagen friend of mine, and way after being out of Volkswagens, I used to go out to California for Grand National, Roadster Show, different stuff with Eastwood, and I used to fly out with, a memory came up the other day, and it reminded me. I was posting a photo of going to Grand National one year before you and I, many years ago, and I was packing my welding helmet and gloves, and I had posted an Instagram or Facebook photo of my welding helmet in my carry-on.
That's funny.
And it reminded me, I flew out, and I think I stayed with him. He let me stay at his place for a couple days, 2-3 days in his apartment. But I agreed for like a day or two of me staying out. I stayed a day or two late, and we like put floorboards in his Rabbit that he was working on, because he had a little one-car garage at an apartment.
Yeah.
He had a little 110 welder. I brought my helmet, and we just kicked the ass on his car and got like over the hump. So I have been doing it for a while. I think it was just like a.
I forgot that we met Simon.
Yeah, you met Simon for a minute.
Yeah.
But I used to, for a handful of years, I used to go out and stay with him for a few days, and then I'd help him work on whatever projects. So that was pretty cool. So I think that's a good way. If you start helping other friends get their cars on the road, you get that culture going where you're helping each other out and getting past.
And it helps spread the knowledge too.
Yeah.
Because there's people that just, some of this stuff is very old school, and the knowledge is not kept secret, but it's not out there on the internet to find.
You're right.
So you're spreading the information around and just help people keep it going.
Yeah, that's true. Because like my friend Nick is really into this stuff, but the actual nuts and bolts of doing some of this work, juice brakes, these spindles don't work with these, and the car he bought, that's the stuff he was struggling with. And it probably would have put him back on the car for months and cost him all kinds of money or years because he didn't understand. And even I forgot about some of it. Like, these spindles look like these spindles, but they're not the right ones.
And to find the information online, there's some misinformation you have to dig through to figure it out, and it totally messes you up. You'd buy 5 sets of spindles that are all wrong.
Yep.
And just like...
and then you give up.
Yeah, it's just going to sit on jack stands forever.
Yeah, so I think doing that is... And this is probably also speaking to, again, if you've already got a car that's on the road that you drive, you should be the guy that's helping your friends that don't have anything on the road get a car on the road. And then hopefully that grows, and that's... I think of it a lot with the old school car clubs. You see it in California a lot with some of the hot rod clubs there. Talking to friends leading up to Grand National. I was talking to one of the guys in the Cavaliers, what he's got going on, catching up. Hey, maybe I'll see him at the show. And he's like, oh, we're trying to get one of the club members' cars going for Grand National. So they're all like, a bunch of guys are getting together and they're working on their friend's car. So it's that, even if you don't have a car club, it's that local community of doing that is going to grow. And the more guys have cars on the road, the more people that are going to, be able to help the next guy get a car on the road. And that's the important thing. Get the cars on the road. Don't just be the guy that's going to the show and the swap meet every year showing the photo in your phone or your wallet of your project car on jack stands. Let's get it done.
Yes.
So next one I have on my list here, and you added to this. Being friendly to people interested in your car, even if they're not educated, and you said it, don't be snobby.
Yes.
So, what do you think about...
So, we get it it's funny to watch Matt's face when we go to, just driving somewhere. We stop at a gas station, some random person comes up and goes, dude, I really love your rat rod. And I always just turn and look at Matt because I know it annoys him, but you have to, maintain composure and just say thank you and maybe explain the difference. But it's always so funny. I'm just going... Oh, how do you feel about that?
Well, yeah, I think when I was...
Definitely years ago, it used to really bug you.
And I think that's with getting older. And I see it. It's funny because I see it now with guys that I see that are just getting into the traditional hot rod and custom thing, that they act the same way on social media or wherever, that they're like, F rat rods, don't associate me. And I kind of was like that in the beginning too, because I was trying to get this identity. I wanted to be... I was into these cars and I wanted that hard difference. That's not what this car is. And now I'm just kind of like, you just roll with it. You're just like, and I understand why the old guys are trying to say, fuck it, whatever.
Yeah.
So now people say it and I'm like, oh, cool, thanks, man. And, but I think I've flipped the switch in my head now that's an opportunity to educate somebody on what that car really is. And you go, no, it's actually just an old Survivor hot rod. They're like, what do you mean? I thought and then a lot of times they're confused. And then you go, no, rat rod's a little different. This is like a real deal old car built back in the day with old parts, and we revived it. And then a lot of times they're like, you piqued their interest. And my hope is that person goes home and Googles whatever, traditional hot rod, or they just Google whatever, and then they start finding this new, avenue or new part of the new niche of the car world, and then they get into it.
Well, it's cool with our builds too, is when people express interest, you can say, yeah, I was in 10 million pieces. We did a whole YouTube series, because especially with younger kids, YouTube's the world to everyone. So you say, we have a YouTube channel showing how we build this and all that stuff, and they're like, YouTube, I love YouTube. And then they go down the rabbit hole of watching, pulling the car out from a barn somewhere to getting it back on the road, and just that little conversation of being polite and just dealing with whatever terms they use gets them rolling on, oh, that's really cool to find a original car, get it back on the road and drive it, even though I just called it a rat rod.
yeah, but still, I mean, that's I think, and being friendly, I've also found that locally I've seen more local guys that were into other types of cars or other styles, and you're friendly with them, you see them at events, and you could see they have interest because they come over and they're asking a lot of questions about your car, and you could see that the gears are turning. It might take a few years of just talking with them at events. And the next thing you know, one year they go, I found a Model A. I'm going to build a Model A. And like they're stewing at home, researching it.
Mm-hmm.
They see your car in person. And a lot of people, if you have a nostalgic hot rod or custom, if it's really a nostalgic one that just looks not a street rod that has a flathead in it. I'm talking about a truly nostalgic car that everything's old on it, looks old. A lot of times there's a lot of people that they've never seen, like they haven't seen something like that. So when they start looking over your car, it might be one of their first opportunities or few opportunities to really in person. And that's how it was for me when I used to go to California a lot. I didn't know where to go or who the people were to talk to see the type of cars I wanted to see. So Grand National, LA Roadster Show, any of my trips out to California going to these hot rod shops, that was my first experience to see them in person and really like up close and personal, see what these cars were. And it made me fall in love with them even more.
Yeah.
So being friendly to that person that walks up, they're probably asking you some of those questions because they're thinking about, man, it'd be neat to build one. So we've now seen over the years guys that have transitioned, and we reference our customer Rick a lot.
Oh yeah,
That's become a good friend. Rick found 2 cars that I knew about in a barn, and I kind of didn't move on them, and he ended up buying them, and they were real deal old rough hot rods, and he hit me up because I guess he followed us, and then I said I knew about him, blah blah, and he started saying he was gonna like rat rod them, and he had some a patina 50s pickup truck with a modern Hemi, and he was into old cars but different part of it.
Yeah.
And he didn't really understand the traditional Survivor hot rod thing, and I was sort of abrasive to him in the beginning, but I think the reason I did that, it kind of worked, and I was like, don't fucking ruin that car, don't do that, like don't put saw blades and stupid stuff on the car, think about what you're doing to these cars before you start going down that route. And then he kind of started looking into it, and then all of a sudden you start to see this evolution. You say, oh, you know what, I think I might put a flathead in this.
Yep.
Maybe and now he is, it's funny, the last time I was over, he's into it deeper than, as deep as we are. He's like, he's just building multiple race cars. He's doing the nostalgia dirt racing every weekend.
He dove in as headfirst as you could possibly go.
And that was the thing of, after I said that to him, he started asking questions through DMs online, and I started kind of answering them and giving him a direction and whatever. And then he kind of found that route on his own. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a good example. People, you be nice, answer the questions, don't be snobby. I don't know why traditional hot rodding and customs has gotten so damn snobby. Like,
it's the popular thing.
It's so snobby. I don't get it. Guys are snobby. You can't win. If you're just getting into the stuff, people are snobby to you because you don't know enough, and they make fun of you. Then if you have too much cool stuff or have good stuff, then people are snobby to you because they have to talk down because they have better stuff. Like, we get it from, I've seen it from start to finish. I've seen it, people were snobby to me when I first got into it because I didn't know anything or I wasn't cool, and now I have a lot of cool stuff and building a bunch of cars. Now people are snobby to me just to be snobby.
You went too far. You can't have too much cool stuff.
Yeah. So like people, you start chopping the Mercury and people telling me that I'm, I can't hang with the big dogs because I didn't do this or do that yet. Yeah. And it's like, what? So we get these comments from so try and be one of the good ones. Try and be friendly. I've noticed locally a lot of guys that go to our local cruise-ins that I go to that have cars or maybe more street rods, some of them are starting to do more. They're trying to do more nostalgic stuff, I think, because they're influenced by seeing more of what I'm doing. And again, they ask me questions of whatever, and I tell them, and all of a sudden you start seeing them doing that type of stuff. They would have just ordered that part off, that Corvair steering box off Speedway, because that's all they knew. That's what to buy. And we go, no. If you buy a F1 steering box, you get good steering. It bolts in. Here's how you do it. And they go, oh, really? And the next month I see him at the cruise. I found a guy with an F1 steering box on Facebook. Oh, thanks. I'm putting that in. It's like, so spreading the information. Don't be snobby.
Well, my thing about don't be snobby is, Matt and I both came from the import scene. Mm-hmm. Volkswagens, and I was into Hondas when I was younger. Those kids, when they come up to, like, you see them at a gas station, they're driving a Honda. You don't have to be a dickhead because they're driving an import. They might gravitate towards them when they get older, but those are the cool things to have when you're a teenager.
100%. I literally see it watching social media that there are people that I've been acquaintances with on social media that were into Volkswagens, up until recently. And I got out of the German car thing as heavily many years ago, and they're now evolving. And I'm starting to see some of them. We just shipped juice brake parts over to England to a guy that was super into building slammed European or British cars, and now he's building a hot rod. And we know a guy that's friends with him that's been doing hot rods for a while, and now he's got it, and he's got 44 drums from us. And it's like, so it evolves. People will get, and that doesn't mean they're going to stick into it forever, but it evolves. And don't be snobby. It doesn't. That person may not be into it now, but
even if they never get into it, all it does is give them a bad notion of hot rodders. They're like, oh, those dudes are assholes.
Rich asshole.
Yeah, I never want to deal with them. They were so rude to me when I was a kid. It's like, we're at the end of the day, if you get down to nuts and bolts, if you're modifying a Honda or modifying a Model A, we're all hot rodders. Mm-hmm. If you boil it down to very simple terms, we're all hot rodders. Just everyone's into different stuff.
But being friendly to people has been a huge help. I've been proved wrong a number of times with people that my first notion was to be a little rude to them because of them saying a rat rod or whatever. And there's been some people that it took years, but then now they're doing the stuff that you like, that just the switch didn't flip for them as quick as it did for myself or other people. So that's a big one, and that's going to help you get a community, because if you're being friendly and answering questions, more of these people are going to start coming to events. You start seeing them, and we're seeing that in our local area. More guys are going to this stuff and getting nostalgia type cars that had a muscle car before, or maybe had a street rod or whatever, So this is one, and we've talked about it with the swap meet stuff. Attend events and or bring friends with cars, like-minded friends, to park together. Participate. That's a word that I've used with the swap meet stuff with Hershey and different swap meets. So it's the same idea. If you don't go to the events will stop. They won't happen if they're not.
If you don't bring a car to the events.
Yes.
I know a lot of people that drive modern cars and just attend a car show, and they have a bunch of cool shit at home.
They have a garage full of cars. How many old guys do we know that have some of the coolest shit on the planet, and they never bring a car to a show?
Yep.
And I never understood that. I years ago made the decision that I was always going to have one car that I could get in and take to an event. Whether it's close or it's far away, if I want to get the urge to drive an old car or take it to a cruise-in or take it to whatever the local big show is in your area, I want a car that I can at least, maybe it's not my best car, but I can get in it and I can go. So that's why it's always good to have that old faithful, that you can cruise in, because at least you're participating. You're going to the event. You're bringing your car. Yes, it's about the people, but it's also about the cars. And in the end of the day, if it's just a crowd full of people talking about old cars, we're starting to turn into the cosplaying or LARPing, where you're just going.
Everyone, if no one drives their cars, it's going to end up just being one or two cars with 300 people standing around them, and the event will just end.
Talking, it just doesn't happen. So I think it's important to go participate. That doesn't mean you have to go to every show. You don't have to go to every Good Guys, whatever. But especially if there's shows that are popular or big in your area, make sure you go to them. So our local one that we've been trying to promote is Wheels of Time. Is one that's been going for a very long time. Locally, it started to get a lot of negative talk in the car community because it's not as good as it used to be, or whatever.
Nothing's as good as it used to be.
Whatever everybody complains about. But how many guys are just not going because they thought it was too expensive, or they thought it was whatever, and they don't bring their car, but they still come, and they're going to boycott it because they can't put their tent where they want to put it in the park. It's like, if everybody does that, we're not going to have an event. And I'd rather have an event that maybe you have something to bitch about than, not at all. So I've tried, and I struggle with being being social sometimes. So sometimes going to these events, I don't I dread it until I'm there.
Yeah.
And then I'm there and I have a good time and driving home like, man, I don't know why I was thinking about skipping out on it. So it's like kind of make yourself go to some of those events, especially when they're local big ones. You're going to meet friends or meet people that, whatever. And that's why it's good to participate. And then I think that the other part of it is parking your friends together. So if you have a car club, that's a obvious thing. Car clubs usually all gather and they park together. But like if you have a handful of friends that you all kind of have the same vibe car, the same type of car, try and all park together or roll in together. It takes a little bit of organization, or create an area where you all can park together. So what we've been doing, for instance, at this Wheels of Time show is the club has been nice enough to give us a big area within a tent to park some of our cars, because we video the show, we give them promotion, we're talking about them here.
Yep.
But what we're trying to do, I came to the club after a handful of years and was like, I could have just been selfish and we had a kick-ass tent with just our cars and stay away from us. This is our spot. I kind of went the other direction and said, I came to the club and said, I'd like to have more area around our tent to park cars, nostalgia cars that are people that are the same vibe as our cars.
Mm-hmm.
And they were very nice about it. They've been letting us do it. It's been growing. And instead of them saying, no, they got to be parked in their area, they got to do the proper way to park in their area, they're letting us just kind of handle it on our own as long as we don't cause a problem. So every year it's been growing where we're having all these kick-ass cars that are kind of parked around our tent that are all chopped Mercs or, customs or hot rods. And, our friend Andy locally that has his grandfather's Model A Roadster with a caddy that's a real historic hot rod. He brings that out a lot of years and parks it in front for a day or two, and it's like it gets all this draw, and it's like we don't need to put ourselves on an island. I want more guys with cars like we have to park in the same area. And I always talk about it. It's much like the story and idea of the basement in Detroit. It's a bunch of guys that got together with crappy old, race cars and nostalgia cars, and they put them in the basement. Well, now it's the fucking most happening area of the show because that's where all the cool shit's happening.
Yep.
Suede Palace at Grand National Roadster Show. You go there, that's where a lot of the guys that are all in the same kind of stuff. It doesn't have to be necessarily the high dollar car. And it's that same idea. So we're trying to create that. So if you can do that at your local event, start a little corner where all you guys that have similar cars are parking and putting them together. It doesn't matter if the 3,000 other cars at the show are not your style. You got your own little spot where you can hang out, enjoy with your group of friends, and then you can walk out into the show and see all those other cars. But like, I have a way better time when it's a bunch of my friends all together. If I got to walk across the show to see my buddy's car, it's not, you're going to spend 5 minutes there and then walk back to your car. So.
And it also helps with people walking around, because if everyone's parked like randomly, they just might be, oh, look, someone drove a junky car. When there's a whole bunch of you, it brings more of a question like, why do all these cars look like this? Not just, look at that piece of junk over there.
Yeah.
There's 30 street rods and then there's a traditional survivor car in the middle. A lot of people get weirded out. They're like, why does that car look like junk? Everything else is nice painted and there's a junky, rusty car. But when you see 50 of them, you're like, I wonder why these people are into this.
Story, and it definitely stands out in the crowd, and that's the stories I heard from talking to people, watching some of these documentaries and stuff. The resurgence of traditional hot rods and customs. That's what all of it was about. Is a bunch of guys got together with cars that were loud, fast, done old school when all the billet stuff was going on, and they just started converging on these shows and causing a scene because 5 of them or 10 of them rolled in with these open pipe slammed hot rods with caddy engines and olds, and it was just like shocking to the scene at the time. But those guys rolled in together, made a statement, and it started a movement, a resurgence. But like, it's the same idea in your little town. Even though the resurgence is big on the internet, when you go to your little podunk town, they don't know what a traditional hot rod or custom is. That's so if a few of you park together, then people are gonna start talking to you. If it catches their interest, they're a prime suspect or a prime candidate to be converted.
Yes.
So, and that leads right into our next one. Trick friends or acquaintances into getting into this madness. Give them parts, give them a deal on a project, give them life advice to buy that project car that they probably shouldn't buy.
I'm a prime example of this. I'm actually the one who said this, but
Yeah.
you bring friends around. I mean, it's like all of our friends. They come around and hang enough. They're like, I think I should buy a project.
I should build a nostalgia car.
Yeah.
And I feel like that happens more oftentimes than not. That you get friends from all walks of lives. You hang out at the caravan or whatever. You host a shop night, and a buddy comes by in his Camaro, and he starts walking around a building full of old hot rods, and he goes, "This is pretty cool."
Or give them a ride in
yeah,
one.
Yeah. Well, if you have a really fast Camaro, that's not that exciting. to
Yeah,
drive one.
but it feels way different.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's cool as hell. So yeah, I think that stuff and helping those people, like I said, in all seriousness, giving them a part, giving them a project. I've said it before. I have a whole building full of stuff that's not for sale. If it's a friend that needs that part and I don't desperately need it, I'll sell that part. I'll give it to a friend. It doesn't matter. So like, if that's what helps them get their car going. So I think that's helpful. Or we've done it before where we've like offered friend project cars. I mean, you're a good example. I bought a collection of 34 Fords. I gave you the cabriolet for what I paid for it. It was like, here, I don't need to make any money. And I've done that a lot with friends before. I said, here, take this part, or, here's like half price on the part just so I get my money back for it, whatever that is, and it helps get them going. So I think giving, is as much as it's tongue in cheek, give them bad advice. You're giving them that little push, but then trying to help them get moving on it. So if you have a friend that seems interested or seems really into it, a couple of our friends, they mentioned our friend Jason is a good example. He started mentioning that he wanted to build like a 60s style T Roadster pickup.
Yep.
He had a couple photos he liked from back in the day, and he has a mild custom that he drives. He drives it all over the place, but he's been talking about building like an old school bare bones kind of hot rod with a Y block and cheater slicks, and he's describing this car. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what kind of stuff do you want on it? And he's telling us and whatever. And he works he's a tech, so he works at normal hours. He can't always get around like we do to all the swap meets. And he starts telling us, and it's like, right after he started telling that, it was like, I told him it was almost bad to tell me what he's looking for.
Always.
And he's like, oh, dude, if you see a good deal on a little, T or Model A pickup bed, let me know and or grab it for me.
It was like 2 weeks later. We were at Carlisle.
2 weeks. It was like 2 weeks or whatever later. We're at Fall Carlisle, I think it was,
Fall or spring, I can't remember.
And I'm there, and I walk up on a guy, and he's got a shortened T bucket, original T bed that was shortened. It was off an old T bucket or whatever it was, or Roadster pickup. And I text him a photo. The price is pretty good. And he's like, holy crap, for real? And I'm like, whatever it was a good deal. He's like, oh, I don't know. And we got to, how to get you the money. I'm like, dude, I'll buy it. Don't worry about it. His father was there. I was like, I'll give it to you.
I think it was spring Carlisle.
Yeah, and I just bought it for him. I texted him. I said, if it's a good deal, I'll buy it right now because that's how this stuff is. So bought him that. Then it was like.
I think it was spring because then 6 months later.
Well, then he went to Virginia on a road trip with us, and where we got the Columbia and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy had a bunch of Y blocks sitting in a shed.
Yeah.
And I was buying other parts, and the dude's like, oh, there's 2 312s sitting there. I'll give them to you for like whatever cheap deal. I already have my truck there. We're already loading parts. I said, Jason, if you want them, just buy them. So now all of a sudden he's got the engine for his project. Then we went to the Mark Smith auction in Virginia.
Yep.
And we weren't planning on buying any cars. And we're there, and what is there but there's a freaking Model T, 2670 Roadster project, rolling car with it was just the tub, the engine, the frame, the wheel, suspension, no turtle deck or bed.
Or fenders.
Or anything. And we texted him like, dude, there's a freaking exactly what you need. All he needed was a clean tub. Mm-hmm. And it was like an old Survivor car somebody took apart and lost all the parts. So we bought the thing for pretty cheap for him.
Yeah, I think it was like $1,800.
It might even been less than that. I don't remember, $1,200.
It was pretty cheap.
It was pretty cheap. And we rolled in our trailer because we were already there buying anyways, brought it home, and literally we just spread the word for him. and he came over. We pulled the body, and a T guy showed up on the spot the same day, bought everything else from him for 80% of what he paid for everything, and now he's got like a $200 tub with no rust. So now he's got an engine, he's got a tub, he's got a bed. He bought an 8-inch rear for me forever ago that I had sitting around for 2 of them for cheap for like, I think I gave him $50 for the pair or something. I found him those crazy pipes at Hershey one year for a Y block.
No, I found them and then texted you.
Oh yeah.
He was there, and
So all this stuff was just like us looking out for a friend.
Yeah.
And we could have easily just went to that auction and just been like, dude, I saw this Tigo for really cheap. And he's like, what the heck? Like, it was a pain in the butt for us to get that car for him, get it in the trailer, pack around it. But it helped our friend out, and it's going to help a friend get another car on the road.
And we do that a ton at swap meets. We have a group of friends that are all building hot rods, and we'll be at Hershey and be like, aren't you looking for X, Y, and Z? Here's this part. Here's the space number. This is what I wanted for it.
Yeah. And it's like, so helping be the lubrication to help get somebody, going on a project or, whatever. I talk about a lot. Like, my favorite part of driving old cars isn't necessarily going to events. It's just driving it to visit friends, driving it like a normal car wherever around. And so it's like, drive your cars more than just taking it to an event. Go drive them everywhere. Go to the grocery store, go wherever. And you're going to meet new people and probably meet people that are into the same stuff. So there's going to be instances where you may be driving a car somewhere out and about, and somebody that works in that area, or maybe a guy that drives a service truck is driving through a town he doesn't drive through. He sees your Roadster, pulls in, stops, starts talking to you, and now you make a new friend that's into that. And that guy lives an hour away, and he never would have met except for you were driving your car on 3 o'clock on a Wednesday, and the guy saw it at the gas station. So,
and some people just never see old cars out and about.
Yeah.
So just driving them it's a teachable moment. People pull into a gas station. They're like, I've never seen a car this old on the road before.
Like, I drive.
It's my daily driver in the summertime.
Yep.
And that might just spark a moment where they're like, oh, wow.
That like blows people's mind all the time when I give that answer. They're like, people go like, is there a show like tonight or like people all the time on like a Wednesday night? I'll just be like going to visit a friend, and I stop at the gas station or grab a slice of pizza to go, whatever. And the person will be like, is there a show around here like this weekend or like today or tonight and whatever? And I'm like, no. Like,
just drive it.
I'm just driving it. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I just drive the car. Like, I went to get groceries before this in it. Like,
well, I think that's part of the car show culture is so ingrained in everyone that like people don't drive their cars. They drive them to a car show. No one's just using it as a car.
You're only using it to take it to the specific event and only use it for that short window of the day, where I'd rather drive the car all the time, even if it's short trips, to get the fun of driving it around and be, but it's going to help you meet new people, help create that culture or scene, so to speak, because you're probably going to meet new people in the community. So I think that's a short one to talk about, but an important one. We got 2 more. So one of them in this day and age is pretty obvious, but networking with social media.
Yep.
I've probably met, maybe we've talked about on the podcast, some of our closest group of friends, I would say most of them are people we met on the internet.
Yeah.
That were off the internet, total strangers. So our one friend Jason from New Jersey he's building the 32 pickup. He's into motorcycles, blah, blah, blah. He literally just DM'd me he might be able to expand on this, but I think he just literally DM'd me on Instagram.
I'm pretty sure.
And was like, hey man, I really dig what you're doing. I want to get into metal fab and blah, blah, blah. Do you think I could ever come hang out or hang around or whatever? He started just driving down a couple times a month, 2 hours each way, and would hang out on a Sunday. And
that's how Spencer was too.
Yeah, Spencer same thing. They all kind of happened at a similar time. Spencer just hit me up, said, hey, I just really want to get into old hot rods, and can I come by and hang out? And he was coming, occasionally on random nights, Sundays or whatever. And our buddy Justin now was a local guy that followed me on the internet. And then finally, again, back to the driving your cars. He saw me at a gas station. We started talking, and then we had a face-to-face interaction. And then, through the internet, we started talking, and now he's a good friend. And, we have a lot of like friends like that were like your friend, networking on social media, and then when you meet in real life, we've talked about a bunch of times, a bunch of guys that we've met in person and hung out with, and all of a sudden they feel like old friends. Like, so that network, as much as people demonize social media, it is good like that. I made some of my best friends through people I met on the internet, that you wouldn't have previously met because they live 2 hours away or whatever.
And you might actually, with that networking, you might find someone in your town or nearby that's into the same thing. You just never cross paths.
Yeah, that's true. That's like with the way the algorithm these days works, they'll put people who are into the same stuff. They'll show you them. You may also
this person
friend suggestion, and you click on. You're like, whoa, this guy lives 30 minutes away. Oh, this cool stuff he has. And you send him a message, and then you become friends. And just don't be creepy about it. But generally, it works out. The last one is one that I think is really cool and is also important in the hobby, is connecting with the OGs or the old timers, especially when it comes to nostalgia, hot rods, and customs. Connecting with and trying to be friendly and helping any of the older guys or gals that were into this stuff way back in the day. We know a lot of guys and I met a lot of guys that we talk to at events that are like, I used to be into it. I had a hot rod when I was 18, or, I used to drag race, and then I had kids and, a family, and sold everything and been out of it for years. And now kids are grown up and they have time to get into it. And they're like, they're looking to get back into it. Mm-hmm. And I think connecting with those older people and some, obviously helping them if they need help. We're doing it with our friend Pete right now. Pete's not physically able to get his car going again. We're trying to get his car going so he has his car to take out and drive around. So but connecting with those people is important, because I think I can't even count how many times a guy that has a street rod or whatever comes up to us at Wheels of Time or Hershey or one of these events, and they're intrigued by our stuff because it's a car like they had when they were...
Or their car that they have used to be that.
Yeah.
And they transformed it to follow the trends of the street rod and billet stuff. And they're showing us photos of how it used to look back in the day.
And then they're like inspired that they're like, well, man, I didn't know guys were still... We hear that a lot. I didn't know young guys were into that old stuff. I thought it was like everybody was out of it, or was, they're just out of touch with the nostalgia, resurgence of traditional or nostalgia cars. So like the old guys or the OGs, they're the ones you can learn something from. And I don't know how many times we've heard of, you reconnect with them or you connect with them and then they start getting into it. Next thing you know, they're like, they're head over heels back into it like they were when they were in their 20s or teens or whatever, because now you're creating a community and they have a reason. Like maybe, street rods were the thing and they converted a car to that, and that's just what they knew. And now that they know that there's a whole world of these other people doing the cars that they cut their teeth on, now it's like, oh man, I'll build one. Now that they didn't even know you could find the parts anymore because they sold all their stuff or whatever. So we try and do that a lot. I mean, I try and any older guy that I can reconnect with, because I'm selfish. I want to learn from them. So a lot of times talking to them and being friendly and helping them, I usually learn something, so it's very, very good. It's helpful. And it gets them back into the scene, and, and it creates that, the helping your elders, these are the guys that started it all. So, I think trying to get, if you see an older guy that's interested, don't be snobby. That older guy might have been the biggest badass in the world with his 32 3-window in 57. He might look like he's old and got a cane now, but like, you'd be friendly to him, because sometimes we've had that, and the guy's like, oh, I still have that car in the garage, like I just couldn't get it on the road, or I haven't whatever. And if you as a car community, a bunch of guys get together and help him get the car on the road. Like, I mean, for me, that's the coolest. That's the coolest thing with this hobby is when you see a group of nostalgia cars roll in. Two of the guys are 18, two of them are in their 40s, a couple of them in their 60s, and then there's the one or two guys that are 75, 85 years old, and they get out of the car and you're like, dude, that's so cool. Like this hobby transcended all these, this age group of people. And I joke about it a lot with people. Like some of my best friends are also guys that could be my grandfather.
Oh, 100%.
And we have more in common than most people our age because they're into that stuff. So having those conversations and talking, we've talked about like your grandfather.
Dude, he's told me so many stories in the last like 5 years that I've never heard of his like early hot rodding days. We just like never talked about because he was just, when I was a kid, I always knew him as into like Tri-5 Chevys and into more of the muscle car stuff. But before all of that, he was into hot rods and early Fords and flathead stuff. And it's just funny that conversation never happened because just never thought to bring it up. But now that I'm in this stuff like he was as a kid, it's like reignited that flame. And he wants to buy the green 32 Roadster from Matt in the worst way and talks about it every time I talk to him.
And whenever I see his grandfather, he like, actually Kate and I were cruising to an event somewhere
In the 38.
in a blue 38, and his grandfather pulled up next to us at a light, and he's like, "Is that 38 Deluxe?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Whoa, I know you." And he's like, "You ought to know me." But it was like, it's just funny. Like he's spotting the car and he's getting excited. And now I see your grandfather coming to some of the events, and his grandfather's like hanging around, looking at the cars, talking to, like probably more than he ever was because now you're into it.
Yeah, definitely.
So like, and maybe he doesn't ever get a car in a row, but he's excited to participate and go to events again that he kind of didn't do before. But now, he has a reason to.
Yeah, he's always gone to Wheels of Time. He would like just go and walk through real quick, and now he spends like an entire day there walking around, comes talk to us, walks around some more. So,
and we're like connecting him with people he used to know.
Yeah,
we know old timers that he used to know that are customers of ours or whatever. So it's kind of cool. It puts those all those pieces together.
Can't wait to take him for a ride. Well, I'll probably actually let him drive the 34.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Done. Like, drive over and he'd be like, "Oh, this thing's killer." And be like, "Here, let's go for a drive."
It's like, man, I forgot how junky these cars were. It's like my father. Like, I remember what these cars were like to drive. It's been so long.
I'll take him to it's reverse. He actually taught me how to drive when I was a kid.
Oh, no kidding.
He was our driving instructor.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, take him to the high school parking lot and be like, "Here, drive it. We're going to drive in the parking lot first, and then we'll take it out on the road."
Take it out on the road. You don't have to worry about being too fast for him. So
no, not at all.
He'll be totally fine.
I should make him parallel park it like I had to parallel park. We're going to drive down this street, and every car you're going to have to parallel park in front of.
Oh, my God. That'd be hilarious. But, yeah, the old timers in the old group, I've loved that even you've been seeing it in some of the car club culture, that guys are they're restarting a club, or they're looking into the history of the club and tracking down the OG members and getting them back into the club or involved has been really cool. I know there's a couple of the clubs that we've seen where the guys are like, they found old members and then they get them back into the club, or now that they see that people still care about the history of it. Some of the older clubs or bigger clubs, you see it. I mean, the LA Roadster Club, like they grasp onto their heritage. Maybe they're not as nostalgia based, but they are. But some of the bigger clubs, you're seeing that they're looking. The tie rods is a huge one.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The tie rods with the changing of guard there, with some of the younger guys taking over or being more involved, they're so into the history of them. They're like posting all these old photos and videos and stuff, and finding the old cars and connecting the lineage of what happened with these cars. It's like freaking awesome. So I think that the older community crowd, they're the ones that we should be trying to. The time is short with some of them, and if you can get them involved or start talking to them, and the ultimate is to get them back in a car or get their car going again and start going out with places. That's going to create that community. It's also going to create where you're going to find that some of these older people, their son, grandson, whatever, again, didn't realize that dad was into such cool. And we run into it with the estates when we do a lot of these estates. Dad's gone, Grandpa's gone. They didn't realize how cool the stuff they had was until we're buying it, and I'm losing my shit over this XYZ, and they go, "Oh, Dad, yeah, that was Dad's car club he was in. I don't know much." You're like, and then we know a bunch about it. We're like, that club, had the first car to run. We rattle off whatever, and they're like, "Whoa, I didn't know that was like." Dad never really talked about it that much, and then all of a sudden they're like, they start getting into it, and it's like you see that sadness that they wish they would have been able to learn more when the time was there. So doing that now and getting the older people, getting them back involved with it, it might help the son when Dad's gone. He might send that car that you help get on the road. Son might inherit it, and now the son's also going to be your friend, and we're all going to be cruising it together. So
there's so many states we deal with where the people, not that they don't care, they just have no physical connection to the car because it was lost somewhere between the generations.
Yeah,
it's not that it's sad to see. It's a bummer when they're like, I don't really have an attachment to the car.
But they might have if the car just didn't sit in the garage locked away and didn't get used.
Yeah.
Most of the estates that we see that the family's really into it or appreciates it, Dad was still driving a car. You think of the Beasley estate.
I was literally just going to say that.
Dad was still driving that car, and it was his life. Yeah. It wasn't that he had a car on jack stands for forever on the road. He had it on the road.
Yep.
They rode in it. They went to car shows. A lot of these estates we do, when the car was getting used.
That's true. We buy all the projects, and the car that they drove stays.
And that's what the family wants, and we push for that. I don't know how many times in estates we try and push for that. We're like, even if we're not buying the car, I'm like, you really should just keep this car. Yeah. Think about it, because that's your memory. That's your connection to Dad or Grandpa or whatever it is. And I think it's good to keep those cars in the family. So if we can help make that connection or light that flame again, it's helping that car live on in the family, and maybe family members being into the hobby, and hopefully them getting involved. And that's really, if you're trying to keep the flame lit, the family members are
definitely
the closest to it. So old people are cool. As much as you might think they aren't, they're pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that's all we have for this one. We thought it was a good talk. Hopefully there's some ideas for you guys. Maybe you can get some more community going, or if you have a scene or group of friends that want to start something. Some of these are ideas that we've been trying to implement ourselves. We see other people doing, and I think are doing a great job of it. Some of the stuff I've been saying that I'm trying to do is literally us going to other parts of the country, seeing how cool they're doing it, and wanting the same thing here locally. So hopefully it's interesting for you guys.
Yeah, hopefully in like 10 years there's all these big shows, and they say we're the reason that they helped build a car scene in their community.
I doubt it, but maybe if you have a cool garage night and a bunch of people that have some fun cars, and you're taking them out on reliability runs or something.
Yeah, definitely.
Going to whatever. So thank you guys for following along. Appreciate it. Make sure you check us out every week for our podcast. Thanks, guys. See you.